We have so much knowledge in this world. We have a lot of knowledge about almost everything. But what do we actually do with all the knowledge? Do we integrate it into our feet? By this I mean, of course, do we really understand? Because understanding is taking action and so on. Well, when we look at the sky here, what do you see? Or actually, what do you feel? Because do you feel something by watching this sky? Does this look totally normal? Do you feel something in your stomach, in your solar plexus, in your mind, in your head, in your heart, in your legs, in your toes? What do you feel? And what do you see? Sometimes it's very good to feel and see, or add these two together. Actually go outside and see what you are feeling. Do you understand what I am getting at? But please pay attention to what you're going to witness now in the next 7-8 minutes, because it's quite interesting really to see, and then to start being more aware, start paying more attention, and thereby start becoming more conscious. Because when we know what things are, we will not be so much influenced by them, because we can change our thoughts, we can change our feelings, and thereby we can change our reality. So we will not be part of the global game, you can say, the global mind control game. So thank you for listening, and thank you for sharing with all you know. Thank you very much. I just have to show you this if you are uncertain about what scalar clouds is, what's the Hop pattern of the sky is, because it's very obvious here at night. Or it's about 10 minutes before 11 now in the evening. And we see how the sky is looking. I'm just turning the camera now to the sky directly. And here we have a very beautiful pattern actually. It's so obvious that clouds normally don't form this way if they are natural clouds, which they aren't. So there's extreme Hop activity going on here. Now I'm walking, you can, of course you can feel my shaking of the camera, and I will just turn it a bit over here so you can see how the clouds are over here. It's very strange looking, and it's very heavy, you can say. It's like a pressure going on in your head. It's like, yeah, it's like there's a heavy mobile phone radiation going on actually right now. That's how I feel it. It's like a disconnection between the two brain hemispheres. It's what we also call switching of the brain. This is what is actually going on when the sky is like this, and you see how obvious it is. It's amazing, isn't it? And almost every people should be able to see that this is not a normal cloud formation. Look at the straight lines, look at how it's building up. And we take a little walk further to see what's in the back of the house here. Actually, it seems like I'm very lucky. It seems like they have just chosen where I am, so that's very good. Then somebody cares about me. That's perfect. We actually see in the background here, it's not that intense. So actually it's the famous Hop blanket that has been pulled over and is building up. This is actually very amazing. I haven't seen it like this before actually over this place. Of course there's been like this, but this is exceptional because the patterns are so easy to observe now with the light that we have right now. Look at this pattern here in the sky. All the lines are straight lines. Is this a coincidence? Or is God playing some kind of trick? What is going on? And the birds are going to bed now. It's wonderful to hear how the natural life is still working. Just look at this sky. It seems like a message of huge transformation. I think something is going on. This is a day of, it's a mirror of reality today. It's a 5th flint in the Mayan calendar, and I must say this is really showing a lot about reality, what is going on the sky. We all have it all here, and it's marvelous actually to observe. I will just give you a glimpse of the sky on the other side of the place here. It's getting more and more intense. It's amazing actually to be watching this. The sky is becoming more and more hot, and I wonder if some of the things I'm running in this house is actually working, since this is so extremely hot right now. Perhaps I should change the frequency inside. Well, perhaps I'm doing this, who knows. But it feels in a way that you have got a hat on your head, and it's quite it's not really uncomfortable at the moment, but it's just a little irritating, you can say, or annoying. So these should be perfectly normal clouds, as the weather institutions say all over the world, but of course it's not, and it's all directed, and it's all manipulated, and it's all propaganda, and it's all weather consensus run by the WMO, the World Meteorologist Organization under the UN. And you can say the UN is really the beast, and manipulating the whole planet with all the different kinds of actions. You can say the climate stuff, and the swine flu vaccination, and vaccination in general, and the cover-up of what the mobile phone radiation and what all these things are really doing. So you don't have to be a genius, you don't have to be Einstein to add 2 and 2. That's for sure. Now I just climbed out on a little where I can have a better view, just back of the house, and we see how the sky is really aligning here with the scalar cloud waves, scalar cloud patterns, and the straight lines, and it's wonderful quiet here.
Our next guest is the former Vice President of the United States. Please welcome Vice President Al Gore. And what are you... Well, first of all, let me ask you this question, because there's a rumor, I don't know if this is true or not, that some scientists are trying to figure out a way to block the sun to try to slow down global warming.
Yeah, it's a measure of the feeling of desperation that some of them feel.
Are they really thinking they could do that?
Well, some of them are seriously proposing, and I think it's completely nuts.
Yeah.
You know, you put another kind of pollution, sulfur dioxide, up to orbit, cover the atmosphere. The sky won't be really blue in the way it is now anymore, but it would block out some of the sun's heat so that we wouldn't have to take the difficult steps to stop spewing all this global warming pollution into the atmosphere. And of course, there are a lot of problems with what they're proposing. It turns out plants need sunlight.
Yes.
It wouldn't stop the acidification of the oceans, and it really should be yet another wake-up call for why we need to stop putting all this pollution up there. We put 90 million tons every day up there, and that's what's drying out the soil, 60% of the country in drought last year. That's what's contributing to the worsening of these fires in the West. West Nile virus, worst outbreak ever last year, Superstorm Sandy. But we need to start speaking up and letting the elected officials know that the future matters to us, our kids and grandkids matter to us, and we need to start cutting down on this pollution.
Well, I think it does matter, but I think a lot of people just aren't educated enough, and it's because a lot of the information is kept from us, because a lot of people in power don't want us to know how bad it's getting and what we can do to change things. And I think there are things we can do to change. Like, give us some examples of what we could do to kind of reverse this.
Well, we need to make choices in our own lives to try to use renewable energy where possible. A lot of utilities allow you to sign up for it. But most important of all, in our role as citizens, we need to speak up, use the internet, connect with others, and let the political system know that we care about this. And, you know, winning the conversation is the key to a lot of changes. I remember when I was a young boy in Tennessee, when we won the conversation on civil rights. I remember one of my friends made some semi-racist comment, and another friend said, "Hey man, we don't go for that anymore." And that was during the time when that conversation was won. And the issue of gay rights. I saw a story recently about two gay guys waiting in the pizza line, and some homophobe made some nasty comment, and literally everybody else in the line spoke up and said, "Hey, cut that out." We're winning that conversation. It's a great thing. And
there's a lot, I mean, you know, the evidence is everywhere, you know, with all these superstorms, with the flooding, with everything. I mean, one of the reasons I'm vegan because I love animals, but it's also, for me, environmentally, they say that if every person just didn't eat meat, all meat, not just red meat, but chickens, one day a week, it would be the equivalent of taking 8 million cars off the road. Just one day a week.
Paul McCartney started this Meatless Mondays campaign, which I think is a great campaign. And since January 1, I've been eating that way, and I'll tell you that it has made me feel better. And so one day a week has got to be good for you, good for the environment. I recommend it.
Yeah.
Stupid monkey.
Yeah.
One thing I did is I grabbed mine and I go along the basic guidelines. I got mine as an example every time, and this one I think I can build mine.
Yeah. I mean, it's little things like after an exclamation point, you need 2 spaces and then capital, but after a semicolon, only 1 space. Not like, where's that shit written?
It isn't. It's just.
It's just
not
known. Is that? It's not intelligent. Probably, but no cool.
Look, when we go to ALS and we do our EPR, not EPRs, but our bullets over there, it is absolutely, without a doubt, not anything like the bullets you put on a real EPR.
Really?
The bullets over there are 2 lines. It's 2 lines. Each bullet is 2 lines long, and it's like.
We don't do that.
No.
This video was just published this morning, and the title is "Chemtrails Pilot Warns the People of New York. Last Chance, Wake Up Now." Now, I'm assuming that this was done this morning, but anyway, a chemtrails pilot literally spelled these words out over New York. And on this video, you see him actually doing it. And it says, "People of New York, last chance." Anyway, it's you see this chemtrails pilot doing this, and you can see their chemtrails. They stay right in the sky, the letters, and then they do just like the chemtrails do. They kind of spread out. And anyway, there's a warning being given even by the chemtrails pilots, and this is very interesting. So click on this below and watch it for yourself, and thank you so much.
Talking about this a few years ago was extremely dangerous. Now that we have YouTube and more social networking devices, such as even Rupert's MySpace, this is really getting out in such a way that they can't control it. They must just be really, if you can use the expression, shitting themselves over this, because they can't control people now talking about the elephant in the room, what is so obvious to all of us.
There's a feeling from that area that the states doing all of these weather modification programs might not be doing it for the benefit of the citizens of Texas and other states that they may impact as well.
Well, many of the planes that we're seeing here in Abilene will actually turn whatever they're spraying on and off right before our eyes. I mean, you'll see a plane up there flying like normal. Actually turn whatever they're spraying on and off right before our eyes. I mean, you'll see a plane up there flying like normal, and then all of a sudden it starts spraying. We've seen them fly off into the distance and then loop around and fly back again. These are not your typical planes with a preordained path destination from city to city. Someone needs to explain to me, why do they stop traveling in one particular direction and then loop around and come back again? They perform this behavior so many times that we start seeing the tic-tac-toe grids in the sky. We're witnessing the giant X's. And I mean, Rosalind, when you and I grew up, these contrails naturally dissipated in a few seconds or perhaps a minute max. But these things expand, they grow bigger, and before you know it, the entire sky is overcast.
That's correct. And they are there all day. They do loop the loop around our county and our state. We follow them at times with spotters in different areas, watching the planes loop, come back around. And we know from the FAA records that the jets from commercial airlines fly in straight lines, and coming across our county, there aren't many, and they stay mostly in certain patterns. The jets that we see leaving the persistent jet contrails move in directions that normal jets wouldn't fly because it would use too much fuel and put them off schedule. And the jets that we see here do loops. We've got pictures of them looping the same X's and crosshatches. But I believe that some of that, not only are they looking for keeping something in the air almost all the time, but we feel that some of the markings are to mark the start and stop areas for their programs so that they can watch their experiments either from satellite or the ground.
Why do they want to keep this quiet? Why aren't they talking about this? Why don't they want us talking about it? And you can only come to the conclusion that they're hiding something.
Now, do you believe that this is a full-scale secret operation that includes not only the U.S. but Europe and the rest of the world?
Well, that's apparent because you can see the pictures from all over the world, and I get them constantly. Some areas are worse than others.
The upper portion of the screen is leaving a normal contrail, and it vanishes as any trail of water vapor is expected to. But beneath it, you see an aircraft emission that is stationary, thick, continuous, and persistent, and it must eventually be concluded that it is not primarily water vapor. The environmental conditions for each trail are not exceptionally different from one another, and yet the result and impact from each trail is entirely different.
HR 2977, an actual federal document, an actual federal bill, admitting that they're spraying chemical and biological weapons on us through the use of something called chemical trails that they're adding to jet fuel, especially in military aircraft.
I recently discovered that most of Britain was sprayed in biological weapons trials between 1940 and 1979. Are the chemtrails being sprayed over Britain at the moment a continuation of these experiments, or are they part of the New World Order's population reduction plan, as they are now being reported all over the planet?
Chemtrails to wear down a person's immune system.
One is leaving a big
big stripe, and the head is a smaller plane with just a normal contrail. It vanished after a few seconds. No chemicals or whatsoever. And then it's followed by this plane at the same height with a completely other trail, a chemtrail. These trails are gonna stick until it's become a big cloud like you see behind these new stripes. There goes the little one without chemicals, and here's one with chemicals. Strange, huh?
Well, they say the government is dumping chemicals on us to control or manipulate the weather.
And they say the unusual-looking jet trails in the sky are actually chemical-laden chemtrails. It's a belief gaining popularity here in Colorado. So, is there really poison in the sky? Fox 31's Heidi Hammett investigates.
Poison.
Who paints the morning sky?
Lines in the sky.
Brilliant, bright white blues.
Strange circles.
What chemicals they use, I do not know.
Peculiar patterns.
And I saw grids and grids, planes flying back and forth.
For thousands of people in Colorado,
I think they're spraying chemicals.
Across the country, and around the world.
It's scary. It is very scary.
It is a mile-high mystery.
They say when you see those jet contrails in the sky that don't disappear, that's proof that the government is using planes to spray chemicals into the atmosphere to manipulate or control the weather.
Turning normal jet contrails into chemical trails or chemtrails.
Because they're using government planes that are unmarked.
And while some call the concept crazy,
So when they say, no, there's nothing going on, I don't believe that.
Rosalind Peterson says it's anything but.
I think that this is terribly serious in the United States.
The former USDA crop inspector, who was invited to speak at the UN Conference on Climate Change in 2007, has been tracking the government's research on weather modification and something called geoengineering, a way of fighting global warming by putting chemicals like aluminum and barium into the atmosphere to create clouds which reflect the sun's rays.
Geoengineering is to make a change which is unnatural.
She says the suspicious-looking sky shows the government is already experimenting with the weather. And that's why health department records show a sharp increase in barium and aluminum in California's water supply.
Why would we be finding barium and aluminum and other chemicals in our drinking water and have man-made clouds persisting for 20 hours or more?
But Joe Golden from NOAA's headquarters in Boulder says the chemicals in the water are likely caused by man-made pollution.
I have not been able to find any evidence in the scientific literature or elsewhere that anybody, either our government or any private sector or military agency, has been using or spreading chemicals.
He says what we're seeing in the sky are contrails, not some government conspiracy.
No matter what you say, people are going to still believe that something is going on. And to that I say, well, ask the FAA.
So we did ask the FAA.
And those are definitely not, they're definitely not chemicals. It's just heat. It's just a heat reaction to the sub-zero temperature air that's around it.
Still, Golden admits scientists are experimenting with the weather on a smaller scale. Here in Colorado, cloud seeding to create rain or snow is a common practice.
There are things that we believe we can do, but a lot more research needs to be done.
That's why Golden says we will soon see more weather modification programs, including geoengineering, in the near future. But he says it's not happening yet.
There are 172 bills before the U.S. Senate right now calling for more weather modification programs. And while scientists say it's one way to reduce greenhouse gases, opponents say the consequences could be devastating.
All of these things change the growing cycles.
Peterson says altering the amount of sunlight that hits the earth will lead to damaged crops. dead and dying trees, and the disappearance of honeybees.
Then I think we're going to be in more trouble than ever before.
So is it a contrail or a conspiracy? No matter who or what you believe, thousands of people are left wondering, looking to the cloudy skies for an answer that is clear. Heidi Hemmett, Fox 31 News.
Well, the U.S. military has been known to manipulate the weather in the past. During the Vietnam War, they used cloud seeding to make it rain over supply routes used by the North Vietnamese into South Vietnam.
My message to the governors, anything they need, we will be there.
If presidents don't take action, then they get punished.
We've never seen anything like this.
Nope.
The waves are triple the size of a human being.
When the storm hit, President Obama got to look like a leader. He was being a leader. Meanwhile, Governor Romney had to go back to being a private citizen.
I don't agree with Obama on everything, but I respect him and I trust him.
Okay, welcome back, and this is another serious subject, aren't they all these days? I want all of you to pay attention to the skies, this summer especially. There have been a few days when the skies are magnificently blue, they're clear, but most of the time they are a silvery gray patina. No clouds, but they're not blue. Now, if you look at the horizon carefully when you're in an airplane, you'll see that there's a brown layer. As far as you can see. That's not what we're talking about here. That brown layer is smog. And that brown layer, by the way, literally expands around the entire planet now. It's not as thick in many places, but smog, burned hydrocarbon emissions, hang low to the ground all around the world. What I'm talking about occurs at 20, 25,000, 30,000 feet sometimes, and lower. We're talking about geoengineering aerosol sprays, otherwise known as chemtrails. When you look up at a sky and it's silvery gray in the daytime, it's full of aluminum, barium, and other metallic items that in many cases may be as small as nanoparticulates. We don't know for sure. This is a hugely important story. God only knows how many people have had their lives cut short by this, have had their lives and health compromised and ruined by this geoengineering, this insanity. We don't know. But we are so thankful for a very few people who have been fighting this, none more heroically than Dane Wigington. And Dane is back with us tonight to bring us up to date on the latest with this insane, one of many insane environmental policies, if you can call it a policy, that the powers that be seem intent upon carrying out until the last man. Anyway, hello, Dane. Welcome back. Thanks for being here.
My pleasure, Jeff. I'm very grateful that you're willing to address the issues you always have, the most critical issues.
Oh, you bet. This craziness about people literally growing up, in many cases, this has been going on since 95, 96, and that's going on a bit of time now, 16, 17 years. There are teenagers who have never really seen very many clear blue skies with beautiful white clouds in them.
Actually, we can push that. Oh, I'm sorry. That timeline, Jeff, we can push back much, much further, actually, based on the available data that we have. We believe conclusively now that these programs actually reach back as far as the early 50s, even the late 40s. Now, at a much, much smaller scale.
Correct. Yeah.
But, the ramp-ups were in the years that you mentioned. But there was activity at a pretty significant level going on even back into the 60s, where we have documents from NASA, 80 pages long, that outline budgets in the hundreds of millions of dollars, even in the 60s.
There are some Hollywood motion pictures from the 50s and 60s which actually do have, you can see chemtrails in the skies.
Correct.
Yes. You've seen them. Correct. It's pretty damn disgusting.
We think that that part of that reason was that because it was not very widespread then, not like now, but we believe perhaps that since they thought they could play God with the weather indefinitely, that they were making an effort to condition the population over the long run by being over some of the bigger box office films even back then by intent.
Really? Wow.
Because the frequency in other films from that era and not so big box office films,
they don't miss a trick. Jeez.
They're not there. They don't miss a trick, and they're in kids' films now. They're in animated films, Cars, Over the Hedge. So, a lot of effort has gone into conditioning.
You've seen them in animated films too.
They are.
Oh,
they're in some of the Disney films. Again, I know that Cars, Over the Hedge, and there's several other ones that they are absolutely in those animated films.
Well, you mentioned Disney, and I always feel a twinge of tragedy when Disney is mentioned. If Walt were around, my God, what he would think. This is too much. They push, as you know, homosexuality, pedophilia, geoengineering. They push all kinds of evil agendas now in Disney films. It's a tragedy for all of us. We lost a great thing. By the way, there's a book out, Walt Disney's War Against Hollywood, or something like that, and it's fascinating reading. Okay, my friend, tell us what the latest is. And if I may, let me start off with what I prefaced your visit with, and that's the idea of nanoparticulates. I don't know that that's been proven. You can't see them. But let's just suggest that there is a nano factor to this geoengineering. It's smaller than molecules, of course. Do they aggregate to form molecules? I don't know. I would say this is probably a molecular issue. But how do they handle these small, tiny little objects and get them to disperse so thoroughly and so efficiently? Do you have any idea of the mechanics involved?
Well, first, on the size of the particles, I'll get to that point in 1 second. For people that, a general overview, and I'll lead right into that question, that the reason I've dedicated the last decade plus of my life to this particular issue, and because there's many issues that we face, quite simply, the data indicates clearly the gravity of this issue makes it a superseding issue to all others, in my opinion. I think the data backs that up. If this issue is not dealt with, nothing else will matter. And we are much further into a corner than people realize. The damage that's already been done, not just by geoengineering. I mean, human activity as a whole has certainly wreaked havoc on the planet, but geoengineering appears to be the single largest climate disrupting factor. Mm-hmm. And they're lying, Jeff, about the temperatures, and a lot of data across the board are clearly being falsified. We're seeing temperatures being underreported by about 4 or 5 degrees. Many think that the opposite is true. It's not. Every location we check, we're seeing temperatures quite radically underreported, meaning it's much hotter than we know. Mm-hmm. And we are much further into the curve, and the climate is much farther into the process of disintegrating than people understand. So that being said, on the particles that are wreaking havoc on all life forms, including us, we did do a test. I paid a significant amount of money for a test at a very specialized lab with a rain sample that we knew contained aluminum. And this test was supposed to be good down to 1/10 of a micron. We knew it was packed with aluminum, but they couldn't pull out a single particle, meaning the particles were smaller than 1/10 of a micron.
Wow.
So
that's a shocker. That tells us a lot. Okay, great. Good for you for doing that. Wow.
Well, it's certainly the smaller the particle, the more lethal they are.
Yeah,
and now,
sure.
after a recent trip to Stanford, I met with a bioscientist, nanoparticulate specialist, and now the aluminum has been directly linked to not just all the diseases we already know, ALS, Alzheimer's, autism, also type 2 diabetes and obesity, directly related to aluminum exposure. So
keep in mind what Dane is saying. Excuse me, Dane. Keep in mind what he's saying. This is really important. A virus is a half micron, maybe a micron. 1/10 of a micron is damn small. Now, the smaller the particle, the easier the particle can go into the body, into a zillion other places that it can hide out in, stay in. Try and detoxify yourself from something that small. It's not easy. Larger particles, easier to get hold of and bind and get them out of the body. The little stuff, by definition, what you're saying, this is a massive health catastrophe.
It is. The damage that's already been done is unquantifiable, and it's all bioaccumulative. So these materials are building up like a plaque on our cell receptors. And as you mentioned, this is important for people to consider because the experiment is always changing. And the skies over Northern California, and we're understanding much of the Northwest above us, are clearer this year. That the white silvery haze is there, but the in-your-face trails are significantly less, at least to date this year.
Yep.
But the blanket spraying over the entire Eastern Pacific is much worse. And we're posting satellite photos on Geoengineering Watch about every day, and the grid patterns are so profound, so in your face. They are literally covering the Eastern Pacific from Baja to the Aleutian Islands and out thousands of miles. It's a virtual blanket. And they're trying to keep the sun's thermal energy, amongst 100 other things they're doing. When I say they're trying to do one thing, that doesn't mean they're not doing
no,
other.
there are many. You're right.
Many, but the thermal energy buildup in the ocean, they did this so extensively going into last winter that it appears they virtually knocked out the El Nino that was predicted. And that thermal energy in the ocean, the caps right now, we're probably going to have an ice-free Arctic this year. The cap is melting at a 2-to-1 ratio from underneath. It's melting twice as fast from underneath as above, so no matter how much they geoengineer on the surface, they're trying to keep that heat build up in the oceans. But again, all of this, I don't mean to make it sound benign. Everything they're doing overall is extremely counterproductive. They're halting the planet's hydrological cycle. They're derailing all the natural systems. So whatever at face value they have convinced themselves is slowing down warming. I mean, this is the pharmaceutical cure. Let's kill the planet to save it.
Wow. Okay.
This is where we're headed.
If you look under Dane Wigington's name, you'll see right there, 3 lines down, blanket spraying of the Eastern Pacific. And that's a link. Take that link. Dane sent me the picture today. It's a satellite photo. And if you look at that, look off to your left and take a look and see what you see. It's real clear, real obvious. We've seen some astonishing satellite photographs of chem spraying. This is what shuts off the hydrological cycle, Jeff, for the western U.S. And if people look up the U.S. Drought Monitor,
they'll see something very profound, something we haven't seen ever before historically, where there's a line from north to south about in the middle of the country. The western half is locked in extreme drought, fires, the soil moistures are at record low. And you go on the other side of that line, it's deluge and record rains. This is exactly what we'd expect with the kind of disruption geoengineering is known to cause.
Looking at that picture, looking off to the left side, if you need a microscope, or a magnifying glass rather, do get one. Take a look. You'll see, if you look at those white streaks, you'll see a hatchwork. There's a perfect crossing hatchwork there. It's rather wide, but they're squares. It's all there. Okay. Wow. Blanket spraying of the eastern Pacific, right off our western coast. That's why we're... Yeah, go ahead.
For an update, Jeff, I mean, again, if people want to get the most recent update, they can go to geoengineeringwatch.org on the front page. It's an updated live presentation I did for a large group in Northern California.
Yeah, I have that also under your name. It's a video. Okay. He said something that is profoundly important. He said these tiny 1/10 of a micron size pieces of aluminum, barium, and other things are forming plaques over the membranes of cells. Not every cell, but they can easily and freely transit the blood supply. Remember, a virus which can transit the blood supply, it's easy. These are 1/10 the size of viruses or smaller. They go through the blood supply, they go through the veins, they go through the arteries, capillaries, right on down to the cells. I'm not sure that the cells can't uptake them, frankly. Maybe they can. We don't know. If they're that small, maybe they can penetrate the cells. But this is something that has been dreamed up by mad scientists, and I don't know where it's all made, where it's manufactured. That really doesn't matter. At later, you have a comment, I can tell, Dan. I got another question. Go ahead.
Well, on that point you made, Jeff, on just how far into our systems these particles can penetrate. And again, this test we did could not identify anything as small as 1/10 of a micron, so we don't know how much smaller they were.
Yeah.
We'll soon be posting, and I think 2 segments. The interview I did with this bioscientist professor from Stanford University, who elaborates on much of what we're talking about. So we will have that posted on Geoengineering Watch sometime soon. It's being edited now.
Send me a link.
I will.
Yeah, it's very, very, very important. When I looked out, 2-3 years ago, and we live in the same neck of the woods, I get up sometimes in the morning at dawn's first light, so to speak, and I would look up, and to my east, kind of overhead, a little bit off to the east, and as far as I could see, it looked like Venetian blinds. Stream after stream after stream, and then with a half an hour or an hour to pass after that, they would further dissipate and move away to the east. So they stopped that. Now they've moved way offshore to the west. So this stuff comes in the late afternoon, the early evening, overnight, depends upon the onshore flow of air. And I'm not sure how much is measurable and what your sampling techniques are, but we do remember the few local television news stations which did in fact collect rainwater and did do the analysis and did find horrible things in there.
But bottom line is, there is absolutely positively no question. There is a mountain of metal raining down on us. It's building up in all of us. And again, what I want to stress, Jeff, to your listeners is the immediacy of this situation. We're not talking about something that's going to unfold over the next few centuries or the next few decades. It's here, now, and I believe so immediate that it is perhaps directly connected to the 2.2 billion rounds of 40 caliber hollow point they've ordered and so forth. This one issue alone, amongst the array of issues we face, is of such gravity.
Mr. Fletcher, another question on the in an interview with the Los Angeles Times on April 21st, you said that you told the Associated Press that the American government has created weather tampering techniques so that the New World Order will be able to starve millions of Americans and to control the rest. Would you explain what you were trying to say?
Well, what I was trying to say is exactly what I said. There is weather control techniques. We have a complete package on that, which I did not bring, but I certainly will see to it that it is brought in for the record. Number one, the entire patents on the equipment. Number two, Senator Claiborne Pell's complete statement and story of his own that not only does it exist, but that we even utilized it as far back as the Vietnam War. You might want to touch base with Senator Pell.
I just want to repeat before I turn to
So yes, but we do have all that information.
You're saying the government has created weather tampering techniques so that the, quote, New World Order will be able to starve millions of Americans.
Worldwide.
Millions of Americans, and to control the rest.
Yes, sir, and that's my belief. As bizarre as that sounds, if somebody had told me that that equipment even existed 10 years ago, I would have thought they were nuts, sir. And at this point in time, we have all the documents to prove it. And if you think that 85 tornadoes takes place in the middle of our growing area by simultaneous accident, I'm sorry. With the equipment that's already set up internationally, and as bizarre as that is, it is proven and documented. We will supply you with those documents. As bizarre as that is, I would say that weather wars, and this is quoting actually Senator Claiborne Pell himself, that they are the greatest weapon ever created in the world, and that's the Senator's own statement. So yes, I do stand on that.
Thank you, Ms. Fletcher. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much, Senator.